Well, Donnie and Sean, we'd love to know what you think of Canada's vaccination progress because it seems like we're kind of getting a bit of bad press. CNN host Jake Tapper recently called out our rollout and he said it was a real failure on the part of our government. So is Canada's vaccine rollout ruining our rep? What do you think, Sean?
Well, as someone who covers the American healthcare system quite often, we always point to Canada as this shining city on a hill that has such a better system than we do. So I think it's only fair that now we point to Canada and go like, hey, they're not doing so well. Look at that. Who would have thought, It seems fair. And also I think another thing I would just say is that I feel like it's not gonna be too long before Canada is doing better, because if the United States can recover, anyone can recover.
Absolutely. Yeah, our COVID response at first was horrendous. And so the idea of me as an American casting stones at Canadians for their COVID response is really ridiculous. I think absolutely there should be more done to get shots in arms. I've been fortunate enough to have gotten my first vaccination, waiting for the second one at the end of the month.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yes. But, at first there was a very delayed response. We had no idea what our government was doing. So, yeah.
For me,
though, I think this is not actually about, I know this is going to sound wild. To me, this is not about comparing healthcare systems. To me, this is a triumph of American capitalism, and I'm going to say something controversial, and a triumph of Big Pharma. Because I think that when you put Big Pharma and capitalism together, the production is just going through the roof. We also have major differences in our system. You guys actually have your own Pfizer production plant, for example, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which I feel like is not that far from Canada's border. So I just feel like maybe we should be like on bended knees saying, you got a little extra to spare, because that's the biggest thing here. What I'm embarrassed about is over decades that this country has dropped the ball on research, on science, on innovation, on technology, and we are at the mercy of the rest of the world. That's what I'm embarrassed about.
It's I feel like this newfound infamy that we're experiencing is like a good chunk of humble pie that we're now kind of forced to eat. And I remember maybe about 20 years ago, a friend of mine and I were in Egypt and we were staying at this hotel, and I think we were kind of an anomaly. We were the only Canadians staying there. So they got such a kick out of us. And whenever we passed them, they'd be like, hey, Canada Dry, hey, Celine Dion, wherever we went. And that sort of struck me as being like, that's kind of our global identity, our brand. And so this newfound reputation is kind of like, oh, so is this what we're going to be known for now? And I do wonder what our fellow citizens on the East Coast or in other places where things are going much better than, say, Alberta or Ontario, I wonder if they're kind of like, hey, don't, put us in the same group as those people. We've got things under control. If they're resentful, of being lumped in with the rest of us.
That feels a little bit
Jess,
like,
because Donnie, I know your family's you're originally from Florida, and I remember the headlines that Florida itself, maybe because of the governor, maybe other reasons, was a hot mess. And so can we even compare you being in New York and Florida? Is that even fair?
I was just going to say, us New Yorkers, we're feeling pretty good right now compared to Floridians. I'm actually quite concerned about my family who's all been vaccinated, but, they live at Jacksonville, close to the coast. The beaches are insane, and there's no regulations about masks. The state government, they're not doing enough to keep my family safe,
Sean, you're a Canadian in Washington. And so, how do you manage conversations with, whoever you're Zooming with or what have you about this particular situation?
It's a little tricky, I have these Zooms with my friends in Toronto and thereabouts every once in a while, and their parents are just getting maybe their first shots, and out here it's like anyone on the sidewalk can go get a shot. I got some friends who are very much not essential to anything who are getting vaccinated. So it's a bit sticky. And then the question always comes down to, like, I guess, who's to blame? Because when I talk to my family, they're like, Trudeau. But when I talk to my friends, they're like, well, it's complicated. It's nuanced. There's this thing, there's that thing. And it feels like at the end of the day, yeah, it's just like easy to blame the person at the very top. But it sounds like the truth is that this is like a long-standing issue that is coming to the fore now in this particular crisis. But then again, I wonder, like, well, Trudeau knew about the issue, or he should have. Should he have done something to counter it? And maybe you guys know more about that than I do.